Welcome to 4 Oak Street on this Saturday lunchtime here in Perth, Australia. So you can see in our winter makes perfect modelling weather, and we've had a whole week pretty much of rain and storms. But this video is about the new modules and all the questions that I have, and maybe subscribers and viewers of this channel may be able to provide some good insight and a few answers. But first, before we talk about new modules, just a very quick little tour of this room, I suppose, and the actual configuration of the layout. So coming in from the kitchen, we have a games room accessed by these doors. Now this was originally a snooker room because in between childhood hobbies like trains and scale electric, I actually played a fair bit of snooker, and it was always a dream to have a full-size table. So this is the room, and this is the layout. So looking back on those double doors, I'm not an alcoholic, but you can see there's a bit of a bar there. So when I designed the layout, I really like the idea of a dog bone. I like the ideas of a train going somewhere and then returning back down the other side of the line. So effectively, what I've designed is a dog bone layout where the dog bone at one end, if you like, is actually on a second level, accessed by a helix. So you can see, looking back from here, you can see the train turns around underneath there, where I'm looking now, past that little fiddle yard where we've got about 10 lanes, two sidings. There's also at the far side, which I'll just look at now, there's a passing loop, which is good for storing, obviously, long trains. And then to get up and down the helix, or to get to the 2 levels, there's a 4-track helix, which I think is about 6.5 turns, I think, maybe 7.5, I think it's 6.5. And that's pretty much it. So then what comes out of the helix are 2 tracks, initially 2 going on the left side, 2 coming back on the right side. And we'll come to that because that configuration may need to change slightly. So moving on, it comes through a station, turns left under the church area through a tunnel, and then when we look back at this area, we've got 2 passing loops for each of the outer tracks, if you like, and that just provides another stopping area. Then we've got 2 storage tracks here, and then 2 tracks that lead to the engine shed, which has in it currently, I think there's 3 locos, there's normally 4, so that's a bit of storage as well, a diesel fueling point here. So as that's all accessed by 2 diamond crossings and a double slip. So once the trains emerge from here, they then run along this area where the tracks, if you like, 2 tracks actually on the left here, go down a slight descent across the 2 viaducts where they split, obviously. Then they come back together, and what I've done is the viaduct tracks actually then make an ascent, coming down to the last module that was completed, which is the bridge. So then we have a module which is built but not modelled, and then in that area there where there's all this stuff, some of it's my daughter's, which will be going very early in the new year, we will have 2 more modules. And those are the modules that I've been giving most of my thoughts about. So what I'll do now is I'll just show you some of the plans that I've actually got for those modules, and any comments that you may have, feel free, because the more the merrier, and lots of people have different ideas, and I want to consider lots of things with these modules, not only just the track plan but the actual topography, if you like, of that area. Are the tracks going to be above the roads and houses, or are the tracks going to be below? Will there be a canal? Will there be tunnels? A whole host of things. So I'll show you what I've been up to, and like I said, feel free to comment. One of the books that I have used and like to look at is this one by C.J. Freezer, which has a whole host of stuff in there, from you know, very basic stuff right through to configurations of track and all sorts of stuff. So what I want to focus on firstly is this one here, which is related to, I suppose, turning around a reverse loop or an end of a dog bone. And you can see here that he talks about the turnaround needs to be the equivalent of the radius times 3. So if you're doing a you know, a 24-inch diameter with a 12-inch radius, to turn it back round you need 3 times the radius, which in that case would be 36 inches or 3 feet. But there's lots of stuff in here, but I actually want to get down to train configuration. So this page here actually talks about 4 tracks or 6 tracks and different configurations. So you either have 2 on the outside going the same way, 2 on the inside going opposite ways. So like in this case, he's got up slow, fast, down, slow. Now that was what I initially was going to use, but then I realized if I'm going to have a station in this new module, I'm going to need to have all 4 tracks. So compress the 4 tracks in the same way that I've done in the Four Oaks station, where both sides of the dog bone or the compressed oval are actually part of the station. So I actually didn't want such a big station, so I was only looking at about, say, 2 platforms, maybe one being an island platform. So if I go with that, it just means then the configuration that we're talking about, which is configuration C in this case, you would only have trains coming into that station one way. So what I've decided to do is actually configure the running as per B in this case, which would see up fast, up slow, down slow, which would then mean I would then have, if I have a 2-station platform, I will indeed have 2 trains going in opposite directions. So that's one consideration. Right, I'll move on to some of the plans. I'll just change the camera. Right, well, I hope this is visible. So what we have here is the bridge module, which I've just drawn as a box here, but 4 tracks which are actually more to the left than the right. So in order for me to get a nice curve into the last 2 modules, I'll probably move the tracks more towards the right of this module, so then I can have a nice sweeping curve. So the idea is I've got to turn these trains around, so I'm thinking that the 4 tracks, at this point 2 of them will diverge, as though, if you like, you've got trains going to London and trains going to, you know, another place. So it's like a junction. Now, I could have actually put a diamond crossing and a points in here if I'd wanted to, which would have given me the opportunity then to actually turn a train round, as opposed to the train coming along the outside, or the inside of the outside too. If it then crossed over here, effectively you're turning that train round. But do I need to do that? Probably not. So the things that I actually have as being things that I believe I need, I think I need 2 passing loops, which will then give me the opportunity for a train to actually stop and another one to come through, rather than having a situation where every train that basically leaves the station would, as in Four Oaks, would have to come back because there'd be no place to store it. So in this case, I'm thinking with the trains running in the way that they are, and looking at platforms. At the moment my platforms are around 4 foot, which is fairly big, but it gives you the opportunity for running those long trains. So when we look at the dimensions of this, overall the length of these modules up to, you know, where it turns here would actually be 11 feet. So I think it's 11.5 feet. So I'm thinking of 2 baseboards. So one here that joins onto the end of the existing module at the moment that doesn't have any track on it, and then a larger one here which would provide the turnaround and with quite a reasonable radius. So in terms of requirements, 2 passing loops, one either here with a station with an island platform, and possibly here a passing loop here which would be long enough to hold those longer trains. I also would like to put in a TMD. I'm becoming quite a collector now of diesels. I always favoured the steamers, but I just seem to like the diesels now. I'm not sure why, but I don't know. The Class 37, I always did like the shape of that. So anyway, I'm thinking of a TMD, you know, with maybe four or five storage tracks, a 2-track shed, and would I put that in this area? If so, how would it be accessed? If it's going to be accessed going across that outer track passing loop, that then means you wouldn't be able to store a train in there and be able to cross it. Or would it be accessed from this inner track here? Would there be, or would it be actually in this section here? These are some of the questions that I've got. I'm also looking at having a tunnel mouth here and a tunnel here to sort of disguise this corner, having this open for the viewing side, which is me looking from the side I am. So I'll just turn that round. So looking from the viewing side, which would be here, the station here, island platform, passing loop here, that's for the inside track. That's the track that eventually goes down, you know, down the two inside tracks of the helix. and then either a passing loop here for this outside track, TMD either here or in here. So those are some of the things that that I'm taking into consideration. I'm also thinking about using the DCC Concepts digital point motors, and you know, just having a route setting for the 2 passing loops. I've also thinking about, you know, the scenic side. Will I build the board so that the track bed is elevated, and then have the option of either filling it in with the EPS to bring it back to the track level, and being able to cut parts out to have various levels? Does this section here on the viewing side become very similar to what I've got in Four Oaks there, in terms of, you know, the viaduct sections or the brick sections? So many questions. Do I have, with the tunnel mouths being here, would I have a canal running through somewhere, or even you know, a river? In which case, if I've got a river and a road bed, I'd like to have a nice road bridge over the river. So these are, I suppose, the things I'm thinking about. So 2 modules to build, working out the amount of track. So far I think I've used 5 boxes, 150 meters. A lot of that was consumed in the helix. I think I've got 2 meters left, so I'll probably buy another box of track, because I'm going to be pretty close to that. When this is 11 feet, so you've got effectively 22 feet times 4, 88 feet, plus the passing loops. So 30 meters, what, about just over 90 feet plus. So that's what I'm thinking. I actually found some points the other day that are still in the box, which is handy. I've got about 6 of those. So that's it really. So one of the key things is the direction of the trains, and obviously by running them with looking at this curved area with the inside one running that way and the outside one running that way, it gives you the opportunity to have the 2 trains running in the different directions. So yeah, decisions. And then wiring, I'm going to turn this area, I'm going to have a new booster, which I've already got for the MRC, or it's the same as the Gauge Master. So that'll be a new booster, which will actually take it right up to just past the viaduct, and I will actually have 2 or 3 districts in that area with those PSX panels that you know, stop the any short circuits, and that I found them to be quite good. Now there is one other thing that I did want to share in terms of my wiring, because my wiring is actually so in terms of wiring, I want to cover that in another video, because I've got a dog bone layout, and obviously the dog bone in simple terms is a circle at each end and the inside bit compressed. And then obviously with my layout I added a second loop. So that was it. So normally when you're wiring DCC, you might go red, black, red, black, so on. And then when you get to the other side, you'll be doing it in the opposite direction. So obviously all the positive stays positive and all the negative stays negative. Where that became an issue for me is in the section where I have two diamond crossings and a double slip. All of a sudden now you've got tracks going across. So when I spoke to Richard Johnson at DCC Concepts when he was based in Perth, he suggested a good way of wiring this would be to treat this whole section, which is 4 oaks, as if it was one side of an oval. So in other words, you would just wire the whole lot, black, white, you know, as in positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So what that meant was the helix had to become like a one of those loops where you have a system that changes the polarity, which is what I did. So what it means is at any one time, a train in the helix, you can't have 2 trains crossing the upper and the lower at the same time. But because the helix has got a lot of track, it's never been an issue. So what I've done as regards the wiring, I have continued to wire the track as though it was one side of an oval. So the 4 tracks that go over the viaduct, it's just positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So now when I come to this part here, which is the where they all turn around, I have to make this like one of those loops where I need to isolate each entrance to the loop and then have what I use a PSX AR, which is for a reversing loop. So this then will change the polarity, because if I continue to wire positive, negative, positive, negative, it just becomes obviously a short circuit. But you know, based on the size of this curve and the size of a train with say 10 coaches, I've got plenty of room to do that. And I will need one of those boards for each of the passing loops. Now, a mistake I made when I wired the helix, I wired the helix to just one board. So what often happens is occasionally you'll see a train come out of the tunnel as it crosses into the different wiring configuration, and there'll be a very brief sound from the buzzer that I've got, basically saying there was for a minute second there was a short. But so that's one of the jobs I'm going to have to do eventually, is undo the wiring in the helix for one of the a pair of those tracks, which is an up and down either on the inside or the up and down on the 2 outside ones. So so that's pretty much it really. So these are the considerations. The TMD, does the TMD stay at the same level? Would the TMD have a slight incline up to it for the diesels, just to give it a bit more bit more scenic value, I suppose? Would the TMD be better here? I'm also thinking about, things like down here, I may have a line of the backs of those houses, like the terraced houses. So I like the idea of bringing from the bridge the track being actually on an embankment, because I actually don't have a huge amount of track that's actually on an embankment. So I'm really trying to capture as many scenic configurations as possible to try and give the idea that the trains aren't all just on a flat board, if you know what I mean. And I think it is possible with some good planning. So that's it from Four Oaks. Thanks everybody that subscribes and watches, and also and comments. So I look forward to any comments that you may have, and I really am enjoying watching people's layouts come to life. And also I'm starting to see a few people adding helixes as well. So so far I think mine's the only one that's got an up and down helix in one helix. A lot of people are adding two, which is great as well, because obviously that gives them you know, more running, and you can have just maybe 2 tracks up, 2 tracks down, whatever. So so yeah, very interesting. So thank you again, and look forward to sharing my thoughts on these new modules that need building in the future. Thanks a lot. Bye.